Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Indeed, coming up right now, soon, something that could be a game changer or not. Now, this depends upon those who feel one way or another in this very, very strong political atmosphere that you have in this culture, in this country right now. There are so many things that I would like to say around this and for this. And the first thing I will say is the times are different. Did you notice? You will always remember this. In 2020, what happened? Not just the election, but of course the pandemic and all that surrounded it, and all the issues that somehow seem to be new, and yet they're not. It's almost like many things have come to a head at this moment. And then also there was an election, and also a pandemic. I'd like to say that there is a premise that we teach, that there are no accidents. Truly, that things have come together in certain ways to push the envelope of what you might have done if they had not been here. In other words, they present themselves so they become important, especially in election time, looking at solutions. You probably are saying, well, Kryon, get with it, who's going to win? You may not hear that from me. The contest seemingly between the one with the hair and the one with no hair, or little hair, is a contest that you will decide. But let me tell you something. There are those who say, well, what's in the field at the moment, Kryon? I'm going to tell you what's in the field that you didn't expect in a moment. But let's also review a few years ago what was in the field with the one with the hair won. I sat in front of many who asked what was going to take place. And it simply was not in the field clearly because that was called a wild card. So I want you to get used to a premise in these new energetic times that wild cards are often delivered in order to change things in a radical way. The pandemic is a wild card. The last election was a wild card. All of these things, again, to push you into areas you might not ever have gone otherwise. You might say, well, that sounds like intervention. Dear ones, it truly is, in the best way. You have free choice to start and stop things, to make things move any way you wish. But there's always been that which you would call intervention. Intervention in ways that Spirit would give you to push you into free choice that you might not have gone to otherwise in subjects that are fairly old but need solution. And I think you know what I'm talking about. The wild card that might come here is not who is going to be elected. There is something over this election that I've not freely spoken of before because it wasn't quite time. And now that we are very close, I will tell you, it's almost like there's going to be a stage 2 to this election. And that I cannot tell you more about because it is mysterious, because of what might happen in either direction or either candidate. But there is something in addition to the election. And it may not be immediately, but dear ones, I'll tell you, that's what's in the field. Your free choice to choose a leader. That's understood. That's common. But what happens after it might be very much like a wild card. So this remains to be seen. What will that be and what will you do about it? I'd like to tell you more about the energy that looms before you now, an energy that truly might shape this election differently than ever before. The planet is going through, I would say, gyrations of change. And this is starting to upset many. There are those who are very tired of an old paradigm where things never get solved, and they want solution. Do you think either candidate is going to be that person or carry that team who would go for those solutions? In the field, I would say not necessarily, because both of them represent old systems. Both of them come from old energy places. And the tendency is to simply keep on what you're doing, to say whatever is necessary, and then take the reins, and it's same old, same old. That is what is going to change. And that may play into the second part, that Act 2 that I'm telling you might occur all around what is going to be with this election. Something must take place that will push solutions that were never there before. Look for this first and foremost. It's not about who wins, the one with the hair, the one with less hair, as much as it is what happens after. In either party, what happens after. I'd like to tell you about this, which you call your election. This is not going to be the last old energy election, but elections in general are going to change. This, what I call old energy election, is one many times, we have said many times, that it's so different today. This election reflects perhaps the oldest energy that you could imagine. Here's what I mean. What kind of picture is painted of each side? It doesn't matter, dear ones, which side you're on. What's the picture that gets painted of the other side? Carefully painted, I might add. Carefully painted to fool you, both sides. Carefully painted so that you will think a certain way, even though perhaps the facts are not there or correct, both sides. And what you have is an old energy system that's about to break. It's a system of hatred. And I think you know that. Your forefathers didn't plan that. Active interchange on ideas is what they planned. But they never planned what is happening today. They never planned a scenario where there's so much negativity and so much hatred that parties would face off and make up things about each other and have it, the worst kind of mudslinging you've ever seen. Isn't this an indictment of an old energy about to change? It truly is. It's about to change. What you see about this election isn't who is going to win. Take a look at the apparatus. Take a look at the system that you've created. Take a look at a Congress that is so invested in stopping the other party that very little gets done for what they were designed to do. How do you like that? And what do you say about that? Dear citizens of this country, I would say to you, it's about time for a new kind of energy, a new kind, perhaps, of even an election. And I don't mean changing laws for the election. I mean something very, very different that citizens might decide to do. I'm going to take right now I'm going to take you 100 years from now. Some would say, will this country be here in 100 years? Dear ones, in the field, it says yes. And the reason is because this entire planet is going through a change, and the kind of change it's going through is it's beginning to correct things it should have corrected before because it has higher consciousness. The things that are out of integrity, have you watched some of those start to change, dear ones? You have, haven't you? Those who cannot get away with the same kind of things anymore because everyone is watching. Systems of bias are starting to surface that have always been there, and everyone is watching. And solutions are demanded instead of putting them in the drawer and shutting them. Elections. You're not going to like it. You're not going to like what happens, perhaps. Half of you will, half of you won't. But that's not what I'm speaking of. The system itself is ugly. It's broken. It does not honor a patriot. It does not honor each of the candidates to the other side. It does not have any compassion or kindness at all. Take a look. See what you think. There are many old souls who say, well, I'm not going to vote. And you say, why? And they say, because it's ugly. And I don't want to be part of the ugliness that is here. There are those who say, well, you know, it really hasn't changed much. It's very American to go through this. Study your history. Not really, dear ones. There was a time when you could exchange ideas and yell across the aisle and then go to lunch with everybody. That's how it was designed. Not now. It's about to break. And you will see what I mean with this election, perhaps even the next one. But I have told you in the past that politics will change. So let's go 100 years from now, and I want you to plug in these two candidates to the scenario I'm going to give you, and we'll all have a good chuckle. Is it true, do you think, that consciousness can raise itself to a level of what I'm about to show you? And the idea of what I'm going to give you, the perception you might have of what I'm going to give you, you might say is laughable because it's hard to look up to a higher maturity. It's easy to look backwards and down to a lower one, but I'm about to show you something you don't expect. 100 years and maybe even a little change from that. 100 years or so from now, an election occurs. Let's say that you have the same two candidates only because it's fun to imagine the two with all of the entourage around each one of them participating in this. Now listen, here you go. There's going to be a debate. And here they come. The one with the hair and the one with lesser hair. And they sit across from each other in a desk that looks like a student desk, and they have a piece of paper and a pen. They show up and they shake hands, and they go to their desks. And the moderator says to them, all right, in a moment we're going to begin this debate, and before we begin the debate, as you recall, in this exercise, both of you are going to write 10 things on your paper. And those 10 things are going to be read to the public watching the debate before you start. Ready with your pencils, gentlemen or ladies. And the pencils come up, and the moderator says, here's what you're going to do, just so everyone remembers how this debate works. Each of you is going to write 10 things about the other candidate that would make them a good president. Are you with me? Can you see that happening? And they begin to write. My opponent is a patriot. He has done this and that. He loves his family dearly. He's going to do this well and that well. Not allowed to say, I can do it better. 10 things about the other candidate that might make them a good president. And when they're done, the papers are handed in. They have to do it live. They have to do it right there in front of everyone. And the papers are handed in. The moderator begins to read those things basically which are accolades and congratulations for their opponent. And then the debate begins. What has just occurred is an acknowledgement that there is compassion between the two, that there is maturity between the two, that they can see good things in the other one, because there are good things to see, dear ones. Both of them wanting so much to be the leader because they love their country, both of them being patriots perhaps, having different ideas, different ways of management, different ways or ideas of what should happen. But one is not a devil and the other one is an angel, like they are today, depending upon what color, depending upon what party. And that starts to modify, because there is the idea that compassion and kindness and maturity creates wonderful ideas and leadership that sticks and works. And even then, there will be so many disappointed with who wins and who loses. But there won't be the hatred or the idea that if one loses, you're going to leave the country, or that you're going to hate people for a while because someone else didn't lose. Your candidate lost, so you're going to hate everyone. That's what you have today. An investment in darkness in this election. Watch it. Watch it. That is going away eventually, dear ones, into a place that is a lot more mature. I just gave you the exercise. If you think about it, I don't know that either candidate today could actually do what I just described. I'm not sure that they could even list three, because they are invested so much in hatred of the other side. I ask you, citizens of this country, of your culture, is this what you really want? Do you want this to continue in this way? It's a folly for you to think if you get the right one in office that all this would change. It won't. It marches forward in darkness. It just gets worse. So it's those youngsters who will come up, and those Congress people, men and women. It's the general public which will demand certain kinds of changes and integrity. And you're going to see it first in how the campaigns are run, in the billboards, in that, with a lack of hatred in the idea that you can exchange thoughts on how to without devastating the life of another person, without making up things that make them look even worse than you think they are. Is that really what you want? Either side, I ask you. Citizens, is that really what you want? Or would you like something that made a little more sense? That you could talk about the ways to do things and have different ideas without assassinating one another, without calling names, or without being so angry that you can't even speak to your friends anymore because they have a different idea than you do. And so what I am telling you is this: there is a new world coming. And what you're starting to see in that which is the Me Too movement, what you're starting to see with the church starting to clean up that which was unconscionable, with kids being put upon. All of these things are starting to show themselves so clearly. The sexual slave traffic that is rampant on this planet is going to show itself soon. And you're going to be shocked at who's funding it. All of these things coming out of the closet. And politics will be another. It's time to clean up all these things, and you will, with maturity, not violence, with good ideas that work, that make solutions finally. instead of simply keeping it going the way it was. Stand by for an interesting ride. I am Kryon, in love with humanity that is changing before your eyes. And so it is.